Okay, good afternoon to distinguished guests and colleagues in this conference room at the United Nations University in Tokyo, and a warm welcome for all of audience who are joining us online in the live streaming. On behalf of United Nations Institutions for Training and Research, or UNITAR, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to this public event of the 2024 of Shimanami Collective Leaders for the Free and Open Indo-Pacific Sea and Human Security Training Program, implemented by UNITAR and supported by the government of Japan. My name is Junko Shimazu, Program Officer and Team Leader at the UNITAR Hiroshima office, and I will be facilitating today's event. I am honored to have all of you here today, gathered to discuss cross-cutting issues in sea and human security in the Indo-Pacific region. We hope the event will serve as a platform for dialogue on advancing ocean action, and will highlight innovative policy recommendations and practical solutions developed by emerging leaders from Asia and the Pacific Island countries. On the screen, you will see our agenda for today. We will start with a keynote lecture, followed by policy brief presentations and panel discussions. To officially commence today's program, it is my privilege to invite Chisa Mikami, head of the UNITAR Hiroshima office, to deliver the opening remarks. Please join me in welcoming her.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, participants in this room, and viewers joining us online. It is a great honor to represent the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, UNITAR, and to welcome you to the final event of the 2024 UNITAR Leaders for a Free and Open Indo-Pacific Sea and Human Security Training Program. My name is Chisa Mikami, head of the UNITAR Hiroshima office. First of all, I would like to extend our deepest gratitude to Mr. Shigi Ando, Director of Global Issues, Cooperation Division from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the honorable members of the Diplomatic Corps for joining us today. Additionally, I would like to welcome back Mr. Makiya Nambu, Director and Managing Executive Officer from Persona Group, Inc. Your presence at this event is a great honor and provides profound inspiration to all of us gathered here. On behalf of everyone here, thank you for your time and steadfast support. This program has been a journey of learning and collaboration, consisting of 3 distinct phases: online learning, 2 regional workshops held in Asia and the Pacific, and finally, the workshop here in Japan. Today's program represents more than just the work of the past 2 weeks in Japan. It embodies the experience of the entire program from June 2024 till now. It also demonstrates the passion, dedication, and critical thinking of a diverse group of international leaders committed to addressing some of the most pressing issues on sea and human security in our region. Before we hear from the participants, we have the privilege of welcoming Mr. Keita Furukawa, a distinguished expert in ocean and marine affairs in the Indo-Pacific region, to deliver a keynote lecture on ocean action in our region. His insights will set the stage for the presentations to follow, offering valuable context and inspiration as we delve into the policy briefs as one of the pertinent outputs by the participants. Over the course of this workshop, participants from 18 countries across Asia and the Pacific have worked tirelessly to analyze challenges, exchange ideas, and develop innovative policy briefs. These briefs are not just academic exercise. They are carefully considered recommendations that reflect a deep understanding of both local and global contexts. They aim to spark dialogue, influence decision-making, and ultimately lead to tangible, impactful solutions. Today, we are privileged to hear from some of our brilliant minds as they share their insights and proposals. Their presentations will be followed by a panel discussion, an open space for questions, dialogue, and the exchange of perspectives. This event is not just about presenting ideas, but about fostering a culture of collaboration and inclusivity, where every voice matters. As we gather here, both in person and virtually, we are reminded of the power of collective efforts. At the midterm of the United Nations Decade on Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, and with the highly anticipated United Nations Ocean Conference this year, there is no more opportune time than now to call for acceleration of our collective ocean actions to address critical issues that will contribute to the achievement of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, especially SDG Goal 14 regarding the ocean. This training program is our response to join important global efforts in sharing knowledge, building capacities, and strengthening collaborative partnerships through regional cooperation and capacity development. Our decisive actions create opportunities to solidify sustainable solutions towards our shared future. I would like to take this opportunity to express my deepest gratitude to our audience, both here and online, for your interest and engagement. Most of all, we thank the government and the people of Japan for making this entire program come to life. With that, it is my honor to officially open today's public event. Let us celebrate the spirit of collaboration, innovation, and progress as we embark on what promises to be a thought-provoking and impactful event. Thank you, and let's begin.
Thank you, Ms. Chisa Mikami, for your welcoming speech. Now, we have a message from the former Prime Minister of Japan, Mr. Fumio Kishida, his highly respected leader from Hiroshima. He played a key role in the success of the G7 summit in 2023, and this training program stands as one of his lasting legacies.
三上所長、ご列席の皆様、研修生の皆様、こんにちは。前内閣総理大臣の岸田文雄です。約2週間にわたる日本での研修の修了式を迎えられたことをお祝い申し上げます。この研修は気候変動や防災、 海洋の安全保障、環境の保全、食の安全保障、そして社会経済発展というまさに今日の世界、特にインド太平洋地域が直面している深刻な問題を取り扱った意義深いプログラムだと伺っています。また、この研修は広島と愛媛をつなぐしまなみ海道が瀬戸内海の6つの島々を結ぶように、ユニタールとこの研修がアジア太平洋の架け橋として多様な文化、思想、人々をつなぐことができるようにとの願いが込められていると伺いました。皆様がここで得た学びを母国に持ち帰り、広げていただきつつ、日本とそれぞれの国の架け橋として持続可能な未来に向けて貢献していくことを期待しています。また、今回の研修の一環として、広島の平和記念資料館も訪問されたと伺いました。広島出身の政治家として、皆様に被爆の実相に触れていただいたこと、大変嬉しく思っています。ユニタールと研修生の皆様の今後のご活躍とご健勝をお祈りしつつ、私のご挨拶とさせていただきます。
Thank you, former Prime Minister Mr. Fumio Kishida, for your inspiring message. To continue our opening session, it is my great honor to invite our distinguished guest to deliver his remarks. I would like to welcome Mr. Shigi Ando, the Director of Global Issues Cooperation Division from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan, to share his opening address. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Mr. Ando. Please.
Thank you, Ms. Shimazu, for your kind introduction. And thank you very much, Ms. Mikami and colleagues of UNITAR for the great success of this important program. And I have to tell you, Ms. Mikami, my position is unexpectedly difficult and honored because I have to speak just after the remark of our Prime Minister, Mr. Kishida. So thank you very much for your challenge and honor. And the honorable members of Diplomatic Corps, thank you very much for your coming. And on this occasion, I'd like to tell you as a special thanks to your work for the friendship between your country and Japan. And finally, the participants of the Shimanami Collective. I'm very glad to see you again after your courtesy call to Vice Minister Mr. Matsumoto the day after before. And today, I am very honored to tell you congratulations on the success and the completion of your program. And you're coming from 70 countries of Asia-Pacific regions. After you come back to your home country, you will face very difficult but very important mission to address the challenges of your country. In each responsibility area, you will make challenge to achieve the SDGs. But the circumstances surrounding us towards the year 2030 is very difficult. You remember the impact of COVID pandemic, the invasion of Russia against Ukraine, and consequently we face the hike of energy price and food. And the Middle East region instability is still ongoing. So according to the UN report, the progress of SDGs is delayed. So I sincerely hope you will use the knowledge and experience of this program. Then Prime Minister, His Excellency Kishida, talked about the Shimanami Collective. And I'm convinced you have already learned a lot about the human security through this program. But I am a sponsor of this program, so this is my humble privilege to speak about the human security. Human security is the most important philosophy of Japanese international cooperation, which emphasizes the protection of individual and empowerment and solidarity for the dignity of human being. Well, I think you learn a lot from this program. And Japan, or we are not teacher of you, and you are not student. We are friends, work together. And I'm very convinced you learn a lot through this program. And this is our approach. We are friends and we are working together for the common goal. And this program focuses on the sea, and sea connect every country, everyone. And we, all of us, benefit from the sea. And we have to work together for the preservation of sea. Otherwise, we cannot preserve it. So this is the spirit of solidarity. And now, you finish all the program, and this is the time you're coming back to your country and the implementation. Maybe you face some difficulties, but please remember every time, as Vice Minister said, Japan is always with you. Thank you very much, and congratulations.
Thank you, Director Ando, for your heartfelt message. It is now time for the keynote lecture of today's event. We are privileged to have with us an esteemed expert in the field of marine conservation and sustainability, Dr. Keita Furukawa. Professor Furukawa is the president of the Association of Shore Environment Creation, or NPO in Japan, and the technical chair of the Partnership in the Environmental Management for the Sea for East Asia, Open Sea. He has been working more than 30 years in maritime and coastal environmental research with local and regional experiences, including Asia and Oceania regions. Please join me welcoming Professor Furukawa, who will deliver a lecture on ways forward for ocean action in the Indo-Pacific. Professor Furukawa, please.
Thank you for your kind introduction. Good afternoon for the distinguished guests and the participants of the workshops and colleagues and ladies and gentlemen. It is great to see you again in this workshop, and congratulations for being the final stage. You should be proud of yourself to getting through the dense program of the course with your friends and soulmates. And just before we hear on the top three presentation of the policy brief, I would like to give a flashback presentation for why we need the policy brief to get way forward for our region. And I'd like to try a slightly different way to explain about the policy. Do you know the folklore of the giant turnip? In short, there is a happy family living in an old house, and Grandpa wanted to eat delicious turnip soup. But he's not buying the soup itself, but he's going to plant a turnip in the field, and he took the seed and watered each and every day, and heavy weather came. Then two little shoots popped out. After that, as you know, the pink-nosed mouse held on to the white cat, who held on to the little brown dog, who held on to the grandson, who held on to the grandma, who held on to the grandpa, who held on to the shoot. And they pulled, and finally turnip fell onto them. And they cooked and eat delicious turnip soup. So this is a story how the policy implemented and how the stakeholders get the welfare from the flood. Let's see the situation of the real world. As shown in the Census of Marine Life in 2010, our area, Asia and Pacific region, is one of the richest area of the biodiversity. As shown, you see the coral triangle too. So this is an old house where the filled with a happy family. We have a diversity in our region. Not only the nature, human society also concentrated in our region, Asia Pacific. For example, the 1/3 of the world population is concentrated around the South China Seas. The nature's contribution to the people support these massive population and activities of human beings. We would like to sustain this, excuse me, some message came. We would like to sustain this wealth as long as possible and share with people who live in our region as a delicious turnip soup. And for getting wealth of the nature, we have to think about the source of the wealth. It is a primary production of the ecosystem on the earth. Phytoplankton, getting photosynthesis with solar energy and water, and it is transferring to higher life forms and keep a healthy earth and secure the food for us. We have to maintain the system well to maintain continuous circulation of the materials on the earth. Especially on the shallow water region, as a coast, the connection of the producers, consumers, decomposers are complex and being kept at high productivities. It is more than twice of the tropical forest and 20 times higher than the ocean field. So we have very good foundation as a grandpa has good farming ground for the turnips. Nevertheless, we are facing serious threats. Climate change triggered coral bleaching by the heat waves all over the world. Large hypoxia and ocean acidification are expected to appear in the region soon. And marine debris are a big concern of each country, especially for the plastics. And habitat of living creatures are degraded. Sometimes we see the massive mortality on the coast. We have to prepare against the natural and human-made hazard. To tackle on the situation, international societies have been examined several attempts to sustain the Earth system. UNCLOS clarified the division of rights and responsibilities at sea. A series of Earth Summit excavate need of the integration, approach, and implementation itself. And the other related international treaties have also tried to protect our survival of humanity from the various perspectives. We are ready to pull a well-growth turnip by good network of various stakeholders, but we have been not able to pull it out yet. That's why we need a good new policies to mobilize ourselves. One of the examples in Japan is so-called Satoumi concept to look after the local ecosystems. People are living in the local ecosystem and we are in the inside of the ecosystem. I would like to emphasize that we are not controlling or managing the nature from outside, but we are taking care or managing the nature within the system. For example, in order to maximize the catch of the short-neck clam delicacy in Japan, and not only to take up the clam, but the villagers work together to cultivate the hardened tidal flat sediment to get better settlement of the clam larvae in off-season. For scaling up the Satomi concept, we have to establish a system to implement the action. It is called security policy. Security policy is, as you know, the strategies of achieving shared vision, interests of targeted stakeholders. Traditional security is about national defense as interest of the nation. But the more modern security is used for economic, social, and environmental strategies as various stakeholders' interests. So we can say security policy is two sides of the same coin with the sustainability policy. We need to integrate these targets with a consideration of overlapping and interaction between the targets. For example, the implementation plan of the Sustainable Development Strategies for Seas of East Asia by PEMC, my organization, contains various programs under 4 components. Prioritized programs are gender equality and social inclusion, or climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction, engagement of the stakeholders, and the nature-based solution to invest the blue and green recovery in the region. So we need a good integration of these things together. One of the ways is illustrated by wise use concept formulated by the Ramsar Convention established in 1971. It already 50 years ago. It is based on the ecosystem defined by the Millennium Assessment in 2001 to 2005. These ecosystem services will deliver the human well-being, and it was affected by the indirect human relations and direct nature relations. The elements that need to be integrated are well illustrated by these diagrams. One of the case study from the Philippines. This is a project for regeneration of the mangrove forest by the locals. Locals build breakwaters in the sea to protect and restore the degraded mangrove forest in front of their village. However, the transplanted mangroves behind the breakwaters did not grow well after the construction. And careful and inclusive survey with locals reveals that the elevation of the sea floor is not high enough, and have established the time estimated, and by the observation we estimated the time for required for the restoration. It was estimated as 4 to 5 years will need to get the enough sediment accumulation behind the breakwaters. And from level survey, continual level survey conducted by the local people showed that the continual sedimentation process ongoing to making the area rehabilitated. 5 years later, as a result, splendid forest has been regenerated, and it can be withstand with a significant typhoon in 2013. And in this case, we found that the collaboration among the local government unit and the people organization in the local and supported by the scientists works well to implement the wise use of the mangrove forest. So another integration is sustainable development goals under the 2030 agenda. This is a famous SDGs wedding cake model. At the base of layer, it contains the ocean, land, water, and climate change that makes up biosphere. These affect the middle layer of the social sphere and led to result the top sphere of the top layer of the economy, human economy. In this way, the structure of target and the priority of the integration are shown. Another concern, we have to thinking about the interrelation of the measures. Sometimes we have co-benefit, and sometimes we have trade-offs. This is a famous diagram generated by the report made by the IPCC for UNFCCC and IPBES for the CBD, the Convention of Biodiversity. The report pointed out that the relation of the climate change mitigation measures not always helping the biodiversity measures. For example, the afforestation will help the carbon sequestration, but it can have the negative impact on the biodiversity of the natural forest. Therefore, in policy integration, we need to consider that the good point of the as a core benefit and avoid the trade-off as much as possible. And practical integrated model, the ICM system, has been tested more than 3 decades of the coastal management practice at the PEMC. The regions are well covered, and the regions are well covered, and the governance and policy is well coordinated with the ICM cycle. The more importantly, it is based on the global target, and a good and inclusive partnership on the left that with the various stakeholders is a key to implement the actual action. Now PEMC is implemented the new project that this is a subset or scaling up set of the ICM. We call it as an integrated river basin management to reduce pollution and conserve environmental flow in East Asia Sea. So starting from left-hand side, the base assessment, pilot project implementation, capacity development, and monitoring and evaluation will be recursively implemented. And we already started the 7 projects in the 6 countries at the region. So we try to see how it goes. And the key is the engagement of the stakeholders. In past, the engagement of these stakeholders sometimes occurred by chance. But in the modern era, it should be maintained by a system that has been carefully designed to ensure the practical implementation of our policies. As you see that the many different kind of stakeholders having different interests and different influences. So our hope is bring together to the more influential people and more interested people. As a pool, the turn up for having a delicious soup. And to have a delicious soup, we have to work together. Work together is the same meaning of the stakeholder engagement. It is started from the excavation and collaboration and co-production, these 3 steps. And as a following these steps, the soup will truly become the taste good. One example from Japan, the Hinase area in the Bizen city of the Okayama prefecture in the Seto Inland Sea. The expansion, the engagement for the seagrass restoration work, it was started with selected young leaders, and it is expanded to full member of the Fishery Association, and followed by the local co-op members and school kids. And finally, after the 30 years practice, the Bizen City Council established the ICM committee under their system. So by this, the integration is fulfilled in the local area. So now the time for ready to hearing the presentation from the top 3 policy briefs from the awarded trainees from our group. At the beginning of this workshop, the 2 weeks ago, I put this slide as a key question that should be concerned when you all are thinking about the policy brief compilation. I think it is important the policy brief is not just a document that outlines the regional strategy, but it should have a guiding principles such as common visions, role sharing, and integration of the policy itself. To implement the actions, the engagement, and maximize co-benefit and minimize the trade-offs is a key. So please remember how a delicious soup of the turnip was done. It was not able to be made instantly. They took time for management, took time for having a good vision, and engagement, and implementation, and collaboration. The same things can be happening in your policy brief implementation. Let's enjoy our journey for the future together. As mentioned by Mr. Ando, the Japan and UNITAR is always be with you, and the regional facility of the PEMC is also be with you every time. So thank you for your attention, and congratulations you all again. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Furukawa, for your thought-provoking presentations. Moving on to the next item on our agenda, we will now hear from 3 groups of training participants who will present policy briefs for the Indo-Pacific region related to specific sectors of sea and human security. These recommendations will incorporate findings from policy analysis, identify gaps, and then provide actionable ways forward. Please join me in welcoming our first group to present their policy brief on protecting the oceans. ASEAN Pacific nations call for a moratorium on deep sea mining.
Imagine a pirate treasure hunt, but instead of gold, we're digging up the ocean floor and risking the planet. Welcome to deep sea mining, where the stakes are high for ocean life, and so is our lives.
Dear esteemed guests, good day. And our policy brief today is on protecting the oceans. ASEAN Pacific Asian call for moratorium on deep sea mining. But first, let me introduce our team members. So we have totally 6 members. 2 members from ASEAN nations. I'm Chung from Vietnam. We have Elisa from Malaysia. And 4 members from Pacific Islands. We have Reyes and Jennifer from Samoa. We have Francis from Tonga. And we have Lavata from Tuvalu. Okay, so our presentation will cover first understanding of deep sea mining, and then the governance of it. We move to the progress, how it has been done in ASEAN Pacific region. From there, we will unpack the danger of deep sea mining, and we push for the need for precautionary measures, and we ensure the policy window as long as action plan. So what is the deep sea ecosystem? Look at the picture displaying the deep sea ecosystem. So deep sea ecosystem is one of the Earth's least explored and most fragile environment and ecosystem. Over 90% of species in the deep sea ecosystem remain undescribed, highlighting the lack of scientific knowledge of this habitat. Today, we will introduce the term of deep sea mining. So deep sea mining is a process of retrieving of the mineral deposed from deep sea. It's about 200 meters below the ocean. The volunteer of our today will advocate for a completely stop of deep sea mining on ASEAN Pacific regions.
Looking at the governance of DSM, the reason why we want to get minerals is because we can use it for modern technology and energy transition. So this is covered by international law, such as UNCLOS and the ISA, and as well as national law and policies. But not everything are roses and rainbows. There are problems. This looks at all those regulations not being binding, lack capacity on monitoring our DSM impacts, limited scientific data to back it up, and as well as gaps within our frameworks.
So what is the Asian Pacific region pursuing deep sea mining? The Asian countries are already in the early phase of exploration, whereas the Pacific Island nations are stuck between pursuing deep sea mining and advocating for a moratorium. An interesting case to highlight is PNG's project in 2008 with deep sea mining that collapsed due to financial instability, environmental risks, and strong local opposition. This is a good reference point for why we should put a halt to deep sea mining. The current policy gaps and issues that we have identified is first, many of our countries have weak or non-existent regulations. Secondly, the local communities are often left out of decision-making. The conversations of deep sea mining are usually held at high levels, corporately driven. Thirdly, many of our countries struggle to monitor and enforce rules for mining because they often lack the right tools and resources needed. And finally, we don't have enough data about deep sea ecosystems. Overall, the key takeaway is that we are not ready. With over 1.5 million kilometers squared of ocean floor already licensed for exploration wide, we need to take a step forward as a region, not backwards.
What happened in PNG is just the tip of the iceberg. DSM presents far greater impact, not just to our environment, but as well as our entire way of life. It threatens fisheries, ecotourism, as well as our right to consent over our own resources. As governments and the people of the ocean, it is our responsibility to secure our ocean and nations, as well as ensure economic prosperity. But DSM, it poses an opposite side. It drains money without guaranteeing high returns. It exposes our economies to huge liabilities. I mean, is this trade-off really worth it? We must really take a step back and ask, who truly benefits DSM? The minerals that are mined from the deep sea are from resource-rich yet vulnerable countries, but foreign companies are the ones that gain control over them. So are we willing to hand over our resources and sovereignty? How are we advocating going forward? DSM is a high-risk and reckless gamble with too many unknowns. DSM should not continue unless, firstly, science proves that this emerging industry is safe. Second, that strong law exists to protect our people, our environment, and our economies. Thirdly, that Asia and Pacific countries have the decision-making power to call a stop to this deep-sea mining industry. And until there is protection in place, DSM is too risky, and we must say no before it's too late.
Moving forward, there is a policy window that is rare, but we need to truly optimize it. A chance for us to truly decide the future of our very own oceans. So when we look at the ocean governance and the legal obligation, deep sea belongs to all parts of humanity. This means it is protected under UNCLOS under the provision of common heritage of mankind. But unfortunately, DSM threatens this with weak rules and governance. At the same point, ISA, which are tasked to regulate this item itself, has limited enforcement, which leaves our ocean very vulnerable to reckless exploitation. Moving on to the second segment on climate and biodiversity commitments, it is sad to say that DSM derails global climate and biodiversity goals. It disrupts carbon storage, as well as releasing carbon dioxide and methane gases that contradicts with the current Paris Agreement. This itself clashes with the coming Montreal goal to protect 30% of our ocean by 2030. Precautionary principles is very simple. There are so many risks that are unknown, we must be very cautious on what lies ahead. Right now, we don't fully understand what are the consequences of DSM. Therefore, it is irresponsible for us to move forward. But there is hope at the end of the day. Many nations are pursuing for a moratorium, and this means Asia and Pacific leaders need to step up and be at the right side of history.
Due to the urgency of calling for a moratorium on DSM, we are determined to implement these actions immediately and achieve key milestones over the next 12 months. The first step is to form a strong Asia-Pacific alliance that unites governments, private sectors, indigenous groups, and scientists in a unified call for a moratorium. Additionally, briefings must be submitted to the ISA to expose existing loopholes, such as the 2-year rule, which fast-tracks mining approvals without proper safeguards. Once the initial pressure is applied, efforts must shift to developing evidence-based arguments against DSM. This includes launching funded baseline studies in key mining zones and establishing independent environmental monitoring to assess long-term impacts. Meanwhile, national policies must be developed to block new DSM licenses until strong regulatory frameworks are in place. Stakeholder dialogues must also be held, free, prior, and informed consent, ensuring that coastal communities have a seat at the table. The final phase focuses on securing the finalization of ISA's DSM regulations, ensuring strong environmental and social protections. In parallel, government should redirect investment into sustainable alternatives, such as the blue economy, circular economies, renewable energy. Public reporting mechanisms must be established to ensure adaptive policymaking and enforcement. Why does it matter? DSM is not just an environmental issue. It is a climate, economic, and social justice issue. The environmental risks are undeniable. Regulatory gaps leave ecosystems and communities vulnerable to exploitation. Until robust scientific evidence and governance frameworks exist, DSM must not proceed. The good news, though, there are better solutions. Rather than destroying fragile ecosystems for short-term profits, our leaders can champion sustainable alternatives like resource recycling and community-led conservation. The time is ticking and resources are depleting. Our region has an opportunity to lead the global movement for a moratorium on deep-sea mining. Again, we call on governments, private sector, CSO, and scientists to unite with us in this collective stand against this reckless industry. The ocean is not a commodity. It is a lifeline for millions and a legacy for future generations. Let's make the right choice. Let's protect our oceans.
Thank you very much, the first group. Next, I would like to invite our second group to share their policy brief on Race to Zero, how the Indo-Pacific accelerate towards net zero emissions in maritime industries. Please.
Good afternoon. I am Maria Regina Monsayak Pabalate from the Philippines.
Sa Alofa, I'm Romario Henry Moposi from Samoa.
Hi everyone, I'm Danya Safia binti Dani Iswandi from Malaysia.
Mabuhay, Wyron Bernard Sabadal Balinas, Philippines.
Mbula Vinaka, I'm Asenada Manganatangani representing Fiji.
Mauchan Swanharat from Cambodia. Again, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are the representative from ASEAN and Pacific regions, and today we will present on how the Indo-Pacific can accelerate toward net zero emission in maritime industry. As you know, maritime is the backbone of global trade, and more than 80% of goods transported by sea. However, according to IMO in 2020, maritime transport can contribute almost 3% of global greenhouse gas emissions, while Indo-Pacific alone account for more than 9% of global transport emissions. Without urgent actions, climate change will worsen, transport costs will rise, and global trade inequality will deepen. Therefore, decarbonization in maritime transport isn't just an environmental issue, it's also an economic and social necessity. International Maritime Organization lead global maritime decarbonization effort. The initial strategy was approved in 2018 and amended in 2023. Its main goal is to reach net zero carbon emissions by or around 2050 to ensure a fair and equitable transition for all nations. So the IMO must implement midterm measures basically in two main key elements, including technical and economic.
With the right attitude and right mindset, we can make change. What Indo-Pacific region can learn from each other? Indo-Pacific countries showcase diverse approach to maritime through offering valuable policy, technology, and partnership. Globally, Philippines has reached 43% of women holding management position in their maritime workforce. This can drive the women in the Indo-Pacific countries to have interest and passion to join the maritime. Singapore Maritime Post Authority is granting initiatives to ships by rewarding the use of alternative fuel. Lastly, the Pacific Blue Shipping Partnership targets blended finance to catalyze multi-country transition of decarbonization.
Right, so learning from these best practices, we dissected the issues into three. First, socio-political issues. Seafarers will require specific handling skills because inadequate training will lead into accidents and operational inefficiencies. The glaring underrepresentation of women seafarers also hinders inclusive green transition. It also threatens food security as fuel shortages and price volatility impacts livelihoods in the Pacific countries. Meanwhile, Indo-Pacific countries have differing technical and national capacities. They also face funding gaps limiting investments in modernizing ports and fleets, as only a fraction of their national budgets are allocated for these developments. Uncertainty in what alternative fuels to invest in, coupled with skyrocketing costs for new ships and green infrastructure, make it challenging to decarbonize global shipping. Finally, wrapping up our PESEL analysis, we looked at the techno-environmental issues surrounding it. The shift from fossil fuel to alternative fuels poses its own environmental risks, as this requires specialized, intensive handling to prevent accidental spills. Bunkering facilities and data access for zero-emission fuels are sparse, hindering large-scale adoption, and remote island communities particularly struggle with access. So, what do we recommend?
Thank you, Bernard. So, how do we accelerate to net zero? In response to the socio-political issues, we have 3 recommendations. First, we need to standardize seafarer training standards so maritime colleges can update their maritime curriculums. This will ensure that current and future seafarer workforce are equipped to handle alternative fuels and remain safe at work. Secondly, we need to prioritize seafarer training and specifically recruitment of women. The maritime industry can incentivize women's recruitment through shore-based technological roles to avoid fears against onboard harassment, as well as increase government scholarship pathways for women in technological and managerial maritime and port roles. Thirdly, there can be a certification of products transported by decarbonized ships to promote adoption of low-emission shipping in the global supply chains. And for our econo-legal recommendations, firstly, we need to increase the development of national action plans for decarbonized shipping, aligning with nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, so that countries can align their decarbonization objectives in light of their national circumstances. Secondly, we can access existing international financing mechanisms to fund decarbonization, like the ADB's Asia-Pacific Green Ports and Maritime Decarbonization Fund that will launch in May this year, as well as the IMO's GHG Implementation Fund currently being negotiated. In relation to these negotiations, we should support our Pacific countries in their petition for an ambitious carbon levy, so the redistribution of funds can help developing countries who might find this transition a bit more difficult. Lastly, we can adopt public-private partnerships to establish green shipping corridors within the Indo-Pacific to strengthen regional shipping through legally binding agreements, as well as increasing economic partnerships to strengthen food security.
For our techno-environmental response, we have 3 key priorities. First, we need to improve data collection for Pacific Island countries. More investment in data collection and research with development partners can lead to stronger data analysis and more informed decision-making by policymakers. Secondly, we need to promote the green port system to scale up port facilities and infrastructure for alternative fuels and technology, but still in line with international environmental standards. Lastly, the Indo-Pacific should employ AI-driven technology to monitor greenhouse gas emissions from vessels. For instance, Japan has implemented this technology in its ports, enabling real-time emission tracking and promoting green shipping practices in line with its environmental targets.
The question now is, are we there yet? With the current initiative of IMO in general, this slide shows the timeline of our current acceleration adoption of midterm measures and operation of carbon reduction activities towards important milestones. However, as we approach the 2030 target and much progress to be done, the 20 to 30% target achievement seems to be challenging. If this target is not reached, then we need to accelerate activities to reach the net zero goal by 2050. Based on our findings and recommendations, our theory of change emphasizes the problem statement of significant contribution of maritime shipping to the greenhouse gas emissions. We have identified intersectional and cross-cutting specific concerns, but narrowed down to 3 key pillars of issues, which are socio-political, econo-legal, and techno-environmental. The input in this framework is our recommendations with the specific outputs that our leaders, policymakers, and duty bearers can make and take action. We advocate for these tangible and practically focused action relating to these pillars, such as the development of NAPs on maritime shipping decarbonization that is integrated in the NDCs, accessing international financial mechanism, promoting women recruitment, convening of IMO MS for STWC, doing certification of products from decarbonized vessels, and so on. In the purple boxes of the input part are the midterm recommendations, while those in light blue boxes are the long-term solutions that are aligned with set time frame of IMO based on 2023 revised strategy. These inputs and outputs lead to our intended impact to accelerate efforts towards the reduction of GHG emissions from international shipping to reach net zero by 2050.
To conclude, our road to net zero shipping emissions requires a multi-sectoral and collaborative approach. Notably, decarbonization is an expensive process and requires prioritization of economic incentivization and financial mechanisms. This then requires urging our leaders and policymakers to take immediate action, because shifting from traditional fuels to alternative fuels may affect marginalized people, especially the maritime workforce. Therefore, we must mainstream gender equality, disability, and social inclusion, and prioritize capacity development and recruitment. Please remember that as we continue our race to zero, we must not jeopardize our ocean environment in the process. We would like to acknowledge our experts in our expert sessions. And on that note, please scan the QR code to see our references. We would like to end by continuing to urge you all to push for race to zero. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Group 2. And then now, finally, I would like to invite the final Group 3, who is going to talk about the local action, integrated region, a regional framework addressing stakeholder coordination challenges in community-based marine protected areas for the Indo-Pacific. So Group 3, please.
Selamat pagi. My name is Nasri from Brunei Darussalam.
สวัสดีค่ะ I am Natini Nat Chiang Mai from Thailand.
Selamat siang, I'm Nurrohma Amalia from Indonesia.
Bulabinaka, my name is Chon Ambaro from Fiji.
Magandang hapon, ako po si Peter mula sa Republika ng Pilipinas. The time for us to act is now. The place for us to act together is here. Our distinguished guests, experts and coaches, fellow FOIP leaders, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Today, we will talk about the importance of coordinated policy action to strengthen community-led marine protection in the Indo-Pacific region and reduce the risk of escalating socioeconomic vulnerabilities and a weakening of our shared sea and human security. The Coral Triangle is a biodiversity hotspot spanning 5.7 million square kilometers and encompassing parts of the Indo-Pacific. It is home to a staggering amount of marine biodiversity, which makes it a global priority for marine conservation and a truly irreplaceable ecosystem. However, its geography presents significant challenges to its conservation. The vastness of the Coral Triangle coupled with its fragmented nature, with thousands of islands and diverse ecosystems in varying systems and cultures, make it difficult to manage effectively. This means that local communities must be involved in conservation, as they are the most directly impacted by the health of the marine environment. These challenges highlight the need for innovative, inclusive, and cross-regional approaches to conservation. We must find ways to empower local communities and ensure the sustainable management of this vital ecosystem for generations to come.
Three thematic areas that contribute to sea and human security by way of community-based MPAs are that of economic, food, and the environment. Community-based MPAs, when managed properly, have the potential to create economic empowerment opportunities to involved communities. This by way of commercial ventures from the harvest of fishery resources termed as the spillover. When coupled with non-extractive industries such as ecotourism, involved communities have realized the benefits of community-based marine protected areas, as in the case of Waitambo Marine Reserve Park from Taveuni Island in Fiji, where the community employs a user pay system for snorkelers and divers that pay a fee for using the marine protected area. Food security is a documented outcome of well-managed community-based marine protected areas, as in the case of Luzon, the Philippines, where there has been significant increased abundance in various edible species, both vertebrate and invertebrate. Environmental security, in the thematic area of environmental security, biomass, biodiversity increases have been recorded in Raja Ampat, Indonesia, with a 250% increase in abundance of and various fish species. Raja Ampat has also recorded spikes in shark numbers to the level of 25 times more from pre-MPA statistics. In essence, the three thematic areas of economic, food, and environmental security have been documented and manifested within community-based marine protected areas of the Indo-Pacific. These community-based marine protected areas are supported by current regional policies and frameworks.
Indo-Pacific states have recognized the importance of community-based MPAs as effective tools for sustainable conservation and economic viability. Both Asia and the Pacific have regional policies and bodies supporting MPAs, with notable joint efforts such as the CTI-CFF. However, key differences exist. The Pacific region has a more comprehensive approach, with a renewable strategic document ensuring continued support. Additionally, references to community-based MPAs in the Pacific are more direct and concerted, whereas ASEAN focuses more on combating IUU fishing. Despite these policies, significant gaps remain, particularly in addressing long-term sustainability and stakeholder coordinations. Many community-based MPAs lack adequate support with insufficient capacity building programs and technical assistance. Furthermore, the absence of clear frameworks for long-term growth, management, oversight, and accountability hinders effective conservation efforts. A key challenge lies in weak stakeholder coordination, which is deeply interconnected with implementation challenges and create barriers to the long-term success of MPAs. Without proper coordination among all involved parties, MPAs struggle to gain local support, enforce regulations, and ensure sustainable management. This issue manifests in several ways. First, ineffective communications about MPA benefits leads to low community engagement. Second, unequal distribution of benefits can create resistance. Third, inconsistent governance structures disrupt the integrations of conservation initiatives. Fourth, weak initial outreach strategies fail to generate local buy-in. And the last one, narrowed outreach approaches often exclude key stakeholders, leaving some communities disengaged or even opposed to MPA initiative. Without stronger stakeholder coordination, these challenges will continue to undermine the long-term success of MPAs, ultimately leading to their failure.
Building on the challenge of weak coordination, let's look at how this had led to the failure of MPAs. One issue is governance overlaps. The sample of overlapping integrated system here is from the Philippines. The conflict arises between national and local policy. Second, second challenge is declining commitment when key groups involved in MPA management face unresolved conflict and mistrust. Cooperation weaken over time. As commitment phase and unclear governance exists, stakeholder conflict further amplify the problem. The sample of Fiji here show that unequal distribution of benefit and dispute within community create resistance, leading to disengagement and reduced long-term support. Without inclusive collaboration and clear governance, MPAs struggle to achieve their goal. We will discuss the way forward on how to address this issue.
So the Indo-Pacific is home to a huge number of MPAs and LMMAs, each with their own strengths, best practices, and lessons learned. And we can bring MPA managers from these renowned LMMAs into a joint committee or as a working group supported by pre-existing regional bodies such as the CIFDEC, CTI, CFF, and SPREP as well. And with this committee filled with experts from both regions, we can call for the committee to facilitate the creation of a framework aimed for MPAs to achieve effective stakeholder coordination outcomes. This can address the stakeholder coordination management issues that we've mentioned earlier. And through this framework, we can bring in effective transition frameworks for long-term sustained growth, ensure local communities are not overburdened, ensure benefits such as fish catch and revenue are shared equitably, ensure all stakeholders have a full understanding of their allocated responsibilities, ensure pathways for conflict resolution, and importantly, support financing avenues for long-term growth and operations. We propose this timeline to take 24 months to create the framework, and starting with bringing in the regional bodies to support this effort, input workshops and validation workshops, then finalizing with an endorsement through ministerial platforms, such as the ASEAN Summit or the Indo-Pacific Leaders Meeting. Additionally, the committee can also perform functions that fill in key regional gaps within the region, such as functioning as a knowledge and policy hub, open access data, conservation fund, and learning network. All in all, ladies and gentlemen, the main goal of our policy brief is to showcase that local action can lead to an integrated region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Group 3. So now, Director Ando from Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan has to leave now for another commitment. Thank you very much, Mr. Ando, joining to this event out of your busy schedule. And please give a big applause to him of appreciation. Okay, so we will now move on to an interactive panel discussion featuring 4 distinguished panelists from both Asia and Pacific regions who will share their perspectives on regional collaboration and actions they themselves are taking to advance the sea and human security in their communities. Panelists, please take your seats at the front. During the discussion, the audience in the room and online are encouraged to share their comments or questions through Mentimeter, which can be accessed from the descriptions of the live stream, as well as QR code showed on the screen. To guide this important conversation, it is my honor to introduce our moderator, Ms. Johanna Diwa Akala. Johanna is a global expert on international development who has more than 2 decades of experience working under the umbrella of the UN development agencies, having coordinated and managed international capacity development programs of various agencies such as UNU, UNDP, and of course UNITAR. She is currently the Deputy CD Global Coordinator of the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO, who played an instrumental role in the adoption of the IOC CD Strategy 2023 to 2030. Please join me in welcoming Johanna. Please, Johanna, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Junko-san. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you for joining us in this public event on ways forward for ocean action in Indo-Pacific. It is my pleasure to moderate this panel discussion as we culminate the UNITAR Sea and Human Security Training Program by listening and learning from 4 of the amazing young leaders from this cohort who worked hard on their project plans and policy research for almost 7 to 8 months since the first phase of the program. The outcomes of our discussion today aim to be a springboard for ocean actions on some of the challenges identified during the 2022 United Nations Ocean Conference that unfortunately still remain relevant today, with the urgent solutions associated with advancing ocean knowledge and capacity development still yet to be adequately deployed. Prior to this panel discussion, we heard about the policy advocacy works, which discussed critical issues, challenges, and recommendations related to sustainable fisheries, deep sea mining, and marine transport decarbonization, among others. Now, at the midpoint of the UN Ocean Decade of Ocean Science, the need for capacity development has never been more necessary to accelerate actions in contributing to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, notably SDG 14. Effective capacity development is an essential tenet to achieving more evenly distributed capacity across the globe, across generations, and across genders, and thus reversing asymmetry in knowledge, skills, and access to data and technology. And that brings me to our very distinguished set of panelists, who were undoubtedly the people who will contribute, our future young leaders, who will contribute greatly to this important task through their individual project plans. At this juncture, it is my great honor to introduce our distinguished panelists for today. Starting with Danya Dani Iswandi from Malaysia with the International Justice Initiative. Danya's project aims to develop a strategy to accelerate a just and equitable clean energy transition for remote island communities in the Indo-Pacific through marine renewable energy and blue economy opportunities. Next, we have Nasri Tahir from Brunei Darussalam. Nasri's project aims to create a documentary funded by Nat Geo on the importance of mangrove ecosystems in Brunei and the wider Borneo Islands, and its contribution to Brunei's food pathways, food culture, and livelihood of communities. Our third panelist is Rajneel Singh from Fiji. His project is a regional training and certification of national monitoring control surveillance and fisheries officers to deter illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, and ultimately contribute to long-term cross-cutting issues, including policy and governance, climate security, and food security. And last but not the least, we have Grace Tufunga from Samoa, whose project aims to enhance safety, training, and employment opportunities of Samoan seafarers by aligning with international maritime standards to improve facilities, resource provision, and stakeholder collaboration. So what I want to do now, as I have been asked to set the scene for our panelists today, and I would like to start by talking about the importance of science, policy, socioeconomics interface. So starting with Danya, could you share how some of the evidence-based policies and governance frameworks that your policy group worked on helped strengthen the policy component of your project plan?
Absolutely. Thank you, Joanna, for your question. So as you kindly mentioned, my project aims to accelerate a just and equitable clean energy transition for remote island communities in the Indo-Pacific through marine renewable energy, such as offshore wind or floating solar panels, as well as exploring blue economy opportunities. And I would say that the policy group work conducted in the regional workshops in Jakarta were instrumental to my policy project, particularly in identifying policy windows and opportunities. So our first key finding was that there is a lack of a coordinated strategy for marine renewable energy in Southeast Asia, despite the fact that the region has an increasing energy demand, vast ocean resources, as well as an over-reliance on imported fossil fuels. Secondly, we found that marine renewable energy policies are largely absent from renewable energy policy frameworks in the region. Again, despite the fact that many island nations within the region have exclusive economic zones that are 2 to 3 times the size of their landmass. So there is a unique opportunity to explore the intersection between the blue economy and MRE as a pathway to sustainable development and energy independence. In my group, I had the opportunity to collaborate with participants from Myanmar, Cambodia, and Malaysia, and this was integral in my to deepen my understanding on the region's energy security issues. And particularly, I learned that as geopolitical tensions rise, island nations who are heavily reliant on imported fuel become increasingly vulnerable to fuel price shocks. And this really highlighted to me that energy independence is a cornerstone of socioeconomic security, and this is now a key driver to my project. The main takeaway from the Jakarta workshops was the need to break out of silos and look at integrating marine sectors through one, the co-location of marine renewable energy devices and the co-development of local economies, so the blue economy lens that I learned about in the phase 2 workshops. But in summary, the regional workshops not only strengthened the policy dimensions of my project, but also underscored the importance of meeting net zero commitments in the region. So thank you.
Thank you, Danya. That's a very insightful answer. And thank you for bringing up a very important point of breaking away from silos, because I think that is a very important barrier that prevents the an integrated and coordinated as much as collaborative opportunities that are critical when we want to accelerate ocean action, especially in the context of clean energy in the Indo-Pacific. Rajneel, in your case, can you share some supporting policies and best governance practices that can enhance integrated coastal management and sustainable, inclusive blue economy opportunities?
Thank you, Joanne. Colleagues, so one policy that does come to mind is the Pacific Islands Regional Oceans Policy. Now, this policy was developed by the Pacific Island Forum Secretariat, and in collaboration with other regional organizations such as FFA. So this policy emphasizes integrated strategic actions for effective resource management and conservation as well. So it is an extensive governance framework to enhance integrated coastal and ocean management and promotes sustainable and inclusive blue economy in the region. On the governance side, so at the regional and the national level, so our IUU fishing policy brief team has been talking a lot about three focus. So the first one is the inclusive stakeholder engagement. So while developing regional policies, the active involvement of all the relevant parties should be a priority. And as a subset of the regional consultation, national consultation should also include local communities and private sector as well in planning and decision-making process. So this inclusiveness ensures that the policies address diverse social and economic interests of local communities and leading to equitable benefits. For the next one is the regional collaboration frameworks. So establish and participate in regional frameworks that facilitates cooperation amongst neighboring countries as well. For example, in the Pacific, we have the regional monitoring, control, and surveillance strategy. So that's from 2024 to 2029, developed by FFA, with the focus on enhancing MCS measures to combat IUU fishing in the Pacific Islands for the offshore tuna fisheries. And it binds all the Pacific Island countries under one single framework. So that's the key over here, to battle IUU fishing in the Pacific. And lastly, colleagues, the adaptation of the National Plan of Action. So the government should develop and implement an MPOA that address sustainable ocean management to guide both public and private sector as well. So to manage the national marine areas with the aim to balance the economic, the social benefits and development with protection of marine ecosystems and providing unified framework for ocean-related governance. Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you, Rajneel. And speaking of inclusive stakeholder engagement, I think I would like to ask Nasri next. So how does your project contribute to address ecosystem and biodiversity protection to ensure environmental security and as well as climate and disaster resilience? And did you also engage several stakeholder groups in the course of your project work?
Thank you, Joanna, for the question. So allow me just to provide a very short context for my project. So my team back home, our final outcome is a 50+ minute documentary, and the goal is to highlight the social and cultural contributions of the nipa palm, a mangrove-associated species, particularly through its sap, which has been used to produce the sweet jaggery called gula anau or anau sugar. And it is utilized in the Borneo Island for various traditional sweet cuisines such as panyaram and wajit. And the tapping to extract the sap itself and cook it into gula anau is tied to various indigenous practices of Malay tribes, such as the Kedayan and the Iban tribes, a practice which is unfortunately becoming less common. To raise awareness on this increasingly forgotten practice, the documentary plans to engage, and we also have already engaged with some of them, with a wide variety of stakeholders, including academic experts from the National University, small businesses that sell gula anau products, particularly by women entrepreneurs, families from indigenous groups, who we will document their tapping practices and of the nipa palm, and who will also make the gula anau. The envisioned outcome is to highlight the connection between our mangrove ecosystem and the food pathways of Brunei and the Borneo Island, recognizing that our everyday life, food, and cultural aspects are deeply connected to our precious mangrove ecosystems. By raising awareness of this, it will highlight the importance of ecosystem and biodiversity protection, and how if climate change continues to become worse, it will affect not just our ecosystems, but our cultural lifeblood as well. Therefore, our documentary looks to intertwine these aspects, the culture and the mangrove ecosystem together, as they were never meant to be separate to begin with. Finally, I would also like to credit my main team back home in Brunei. For us, ecosystem and biodiversity protection must involve all levels of society. Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you, Nasri. And thank you for highlighting the role of indigenous communities. Indeed, the importance of traditional knowledge, the traditional knowledge systems of indigenous people and the local communities contribute to address the gaps in understanding, in fully understanding the ocean and our relationship with it, and also its role in informing policy and decision making. This recognition is even reflected in various global policy framework, as you may already know. So it is good to hear directly from Nasri's mouth that his project delves into this very important work. And along these lines, I think I would like to go back to Danya, because your project also relates to issues such as pollution reduction and waste management. So can you tell us how do these efforts ensure environmental security and health of the ocean? And do you also build capacity of various stakeholder groups? And how do you plan to do that through your project?
Absolutely, thank you for your question. So my project aims to reduce marine pollution and improve waste management by leveraging marine renewable energy as a tool for environmental, economic, and social security. So, for example, by applying a blue economy lens, we can develop a MRE-powered waste processing system that turns fish byproducts into high nutrient feed and fertilizers, for example. And in turn, this reduces waste, promotes a circular economy, lowers the cost of imported feed, supports women entrepreneurs who are normally in the post-catch processing phase, and also cuts methane emissions being released into the atmosphere as a result of decomposition. So through the nexus of MRE and blue economy, it is a very real possibility that we can solve multiple issues at once and really accelerate our path into our sustainable development goals. And in regards to the stakeholder questions, at its core, my project prioritizes a just and equitable clean energy transition. And yes, I know my title is really long and it's not even all there, but I really think that equity must be a front-running consideration and not an afterthought. For island communities, especially in the Indo-Pacific, we're not just small island states or small island developing states. We are large ocean states with communities who have been the custodians of our oceans for generations. And their voices, especially those of fisherfolk, local communities, women, and indigenous communities must guide integrated coastal management for MRE, including what MRE choices they make and their pricing and their access. While government support is essential, local leadership is a non-negotiable. There is so much to learn from our elders and our indigenous communities, and it is our responsibility to listen. We must listen to our Pacific brothers and sisters from across the ocean and learn new ways of thinking, of communication, and expand our community, and also reconcile with our collective responsibility to protect our ocean. And so my project aims to create a framework in which we can improve coordination and management of different stakeholders so that clean energy solutions are affordable, inclusive, and participatory across the Indo-Pacific. Thank you.
Thank you, Danya. I like how you try to reverse the terminologies by saying that small islands, developing states are actually large ocean states. And I think that is some sentiments that are being shared by some of our friends here from Pacific Seeds. But as we are talking about capacity development as a central pillar behind this ocean actions, we hear the importance of creating an enabling environment to share efforts globally and through this regional capacity development program as well, contribute to expanding the capacity substantially in order to accelerate knowledge generation, capacity sharing, and accelerated actions. So I would like to direct again my next question to Rajneel. Could you share how your proposed project promote capacity development and enhance the knowledge of coastal communities to contribute to food security and coastal livelihoods, and more importantly, poverty alleviation? And do you have any recommendations based on the insights you gained from this program?
Thanks, Joanna. So colleagues, so my project aims to upskill fisheries officers across the Pacific region and equipping them with knowledge skills needed to board and inspect suspected fishing vessels involved in illegal activities, such as IUU fishing. So ultimately, the trained fisheries officers will contribute towards cross-cutting issues, that is policies, governance, climate security, and food security as well. So the project proposal contributes to food security and nutrition by strengthening the food systems through regional cooperation, focusing on 4 key pillars, that is availability, access, utilization, and stability. So ensuring a reliable supply of nutritious food across the Pacific region. The project also supports coastal livelihoods by addressing IUU issues, which helps to preserve the marine resources. So this enables the coastal communities to engage in harvesting sustainable fisheries practices and increasing their harvest, which actually ensures that long-term income opportunities for all the communities over there. So by promoting sustainable fisheries and enhancing food security, the project contributes towards poverty alleviation, and by enabling coastal communities to generate more income through sales of sustainably harvested seafood in the local markets, thereby improving the quality of their overall livelihoods. So as a recommendation, I would recommend that enhancing collaboration between Asia and Pacific, as we know both regions face the same challenges, and that is of IUU fishing. So strengthening the capacity development and cooperative initiatives will mutually benefit both of us. For instance, Japan has got advanced monitoring and surveillance technology, and if I can get, or we can get, the Pacific MCS officers, fisheries officers, to gain hands-on practice or experience with technology and practices as in the Japan Coast Guard. So imagine the standard and the quality of knowledge that can effectively implement in the Pacific. Thank you.
Thank you, Reginald. That was very well put together. And moving on with the discussions on resource mobilization, opportunities for food security, blue economy, and maritime security, I would like to ask Grace next. Grace, how does your project contribute to maritime security and as well as blue economy, and what were the main challenges that you identified, as well as the resources that are required to address those barriers?
Thank you, Joanna. Samoan seafarers support not only the local economy, but also the regional trade and connectivity. Their skills are key to keeping sea operations safe and effective, which is vital for moving goods and resources across the region and across the globe. So my project boosts maritime security in Samoa by upgrading training facilities, developing advanced maritime skills, and distributing safety equipment, all aligning with IMO regulations. So Samoan seafarers are better prepared for emergencies, reducing accidents, and complying with international regulations. This makes shipping safer and supports global trade. For the blue economy, my project equips seafarers with globally competitive skills, boosting employability and supporting regional trade. By partnering with shipping companies and regional organizations, we'll open doors for internships and job opportunities, integrating Samoa into the global maritime economy. This initiative can also be replicated across the Pacific by sharing best industry practices and experiences, training methods, and expanding stakeholder engagement. As for the challenges, funding and resources are usually limited. which is critical for upgrading training facilities and buying modern tools like ship simulators. There are also capacity gaps in delivering advanced IMO-aligned training, as well as coordinating with diverse stakeholders. Moving forward, however, to tackle these challenges, I recommend that we explore and leverage regional funding programs, as well as building public and private partnerships to secure the resources needed, such as the Samoa Seafarers Maritime Association, to explore leadership and good governance workshops and have our maritime school in Samoa incorporate that into their curriculum, as well as capacity development of trainers through exchange programs and building networks from amongst maritime training institutions in the region. Therefore, my project aims to improve maritime safety, support economic resilience, and foster regional collaboration for a sustainable blue economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Grace. I think that you highlighted several learnings there already. I like about the best practices that you mentioned, and also the resource mobilization to address especially the limited funding, which is the usual issue when it comes to capacity development, and also the human and institutional capacity, human and resources development. And talking about the ways forward for ocean actions through acceleration, I think you also mentioned about scaling up and replication. I think I'll go back to Nasri and ask him what aspect of the FOIP program did you find most useful in your in addressing your project objectives, and based on this, how do you see this project being implemented, scaled up, and replicated in the wider Asia-Pacific region?
Thank you, Joanna, for the question. For me, I believe what was the most helpful part of the FOIP program was our visit to the mangrove park in Tangerang, Indonesia, under phase 2 of the program. At the mangrove park, I saw firsthand how mangrove ecosystems can directly contribute to the economic and cultural livelihood of the immediate community living there. The community there directly sell the products from the mangrove ecosystems they live nearby. In turn, they would rely and contribute to the preservation of the mangrove ecosystem. The park is therefore an amazing example of economic livelihoods which are positively synergized with environmental preservation. In the future, I aim to replicate further this precious and vital connection between ecosystems and the livelihood of immediate communities in future documentaries. My team back home hopes to apply for further future Nat Geo grants and produce more documentaries to highlight the ecosystem services and cultural contributions of mangrove ecosystems throughout Southeast Asia, perhaps even expanding to peat swamp ecosystems as well, which also provide critical ecosystem services. And this future is incredibly possible thanks to the networking that I have obtained from the UNITAR FOIP program, which has provided me networking with not just incredibly talented and experienced participants, but also stellar experts, academics, and practitioners within ecosystem and biodiversity protection and preservation. There's so much I have learned from, and so much still yet for me to learn from the people I've met. And at the end of the day, regional exchanges such as the FOIP program and collaborative partnerships in the Indo-Pacific are amazing platforms where environmental projects such as mine, and I know many others, have the chance to flourish and be inspired by many stellar projects. Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you, Nasri. And well, I am happy to hear that, citing the field trip to Tangerang and how this methodology employed by the FOIP program indeed contributed to not only the identification of best practices, but this is a cross knowledge exchange opportunity where, based on your narrative, you learned about replication opportunities, and in that way also contribute to addressing some of the similar issues that your country is facing, such like what Indonesia or Tangerang specifically is trying to address. And I'm also happy to hear about the collaborative partnership that you're referring to. I have to say that Tangerang is also a PEMC site, and I'm glad to see Furukawa Sensei here because this is also, I think, a regional framework that enables opportunities to forge partnerships with similar organizations in the region who are working on the same issues. So we are almost at the end of this panel discussion, and I reserve my last question, but definitely not the least, for Grace. So Grace, looking back at your experience from this training program, what would be the recommendations that you would like to highlight so to contribute to the strengthening and acceleration of ocean actions in the region?
Yes, thank you for the question. To further strengthen and accelerate ocean actions, we must create a regional system where we can monitor and audit processes, ensure accountability, and find areas to improve. For example, monitoring border management and access controls to and from ships entering our countries. Our countries in our region must work together to make our efforts stronger and more effective. Another important recommendation is engaging local communities and raising awareness for sea and human security issues. This will support the long-term success, but it won't happen overnight. It requires ongoing efforts and commitment. And last but not least, I highly recommend this amazing program by UNITAR, this Leaders for a Free and Open Indo-Pacific Sea and Human Security training program. Being in this program has been such a great opportunity, not only for myself, but for the other leaders in this program that I had the honor and privilege of working alongside these past couple of weeks. UNITAR has been empowering leaders like ourselves to drive innovation and sustainability, uniting our region with shared purpose for action for sea and human security. And by continuing to work as one, we can strengthen and accelerate ocean actions through our collective efforts, contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a very nice way of wrapping this discussion. And we are almost at the end of this panel discussion. But I think that we still have some minutes left for the question and answer. And as mentioned, we ask the audience to submit their questions via the Mentimeter platform. Yes, let me look if we have some questions for our panelists here. Maybe 2 questions, is that okay? I think our time would permit 2 questions. So question number 1 is, how will mainstreaming integrated coastal management, or ICM, into the FOIP program enhance the response to UN security issues at the local and regional levels? Is anyone willing to address? You want to answer? The ICM, how will mainstreaming ICM into the FOIP program? How can it enhance the response to human security issues? Do you want to take that up, Grace?
Yes, thank you. So to keep the Indo-Pacific free, open, and secure, we must take care of both the oceans, biodiversity, and ourselves, humans. ICM, which is Integrated Coastal Management, helps us to do this by bringing stakeholders together to collaborate in managing marine resources, supporting coastal communities through livelihoods and blue economy initiatives, and strengthening security and resilience. So we can integrate ICM into the free and open Indo-Pacific by training leaders, empowering the youth, and sharing knowledge and experiences. we can build a future where the Indo-Pacific is not just free, is not just open, but also safe, thriving, and well protected for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Yeah, anyone else who want to add to that?
I suppose I'll add something as well. I think, considering the fact that ecosystems provide so many benefits, the benefits provided so many benefits to different stakeholders. For example, entrepreneurs would see it as a commercial value, indigenous tribes see it as a source of food, government officers might see it as a potent carbon sink, and marine experts might see it as a bountiful source of biodiversity. The stakeholder management and coordination found in ICM principles and policies will be very helpful in mediating these, differing interests as well, because everyone wants a piece of that mangrove, and if it's not coordinated, it can cause inequitable distribution of benefits, or might even be conflicts between stakeholders who have differing perspectives or policies directed at these mangrove ecosystems. So ICM policies will be able to ensure better responses to human security by ensuring stakeholders that are involved in managing or extracting from mangrove ecosystems are well coordinated and well aligned in that aspect. Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you, Ms. Ree. I hear several keywords there from your and Grace answers. Of course, all this stakeholder engagement and also the coordination mechanisms that are at the backbone of ICM implementation. Thank you for that. And I think we can have another question. How would you frame the ocean, climate, and biodiversity nexus into your projects and or group policy work? Yes, Reginald?
Thanks, Joanna. So colleagues, so my project is about training and fish officers and on IUU fishing and everything like that. So as you know, my project is about combating IUU fishing, and so with I being the illegal fishing practices such as cyanide fishing, use of explosives, or bottom trawling. So these illegal practices actually add to habitat destruction and weakens the marine ecosystem as well, and threatens biodiversity for sure, right? And on the climate side of things, so these unsustainable fishing practices actually diminishes the ocean's ability to regulate the carbon. And on the ocean and the coastal management includes, as we know, includes the offshore and the inshore fisheries management. So all of this is linked to sustainable development, and by managing or controlling and ending IUU fishing, you will manage biodiversity, fisheries, and climate for healthy ocean and people as well. Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you, Reginald. Danya, you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. So I think how my project looks at the ocean climate biodiversity nexus is by really recognizing that oceans are not just infinite resources, but living ecosystems. And as Furukawa Sensei mentioned, we cannot reap the benefits of things that we do with the ocean if we're trading them with environmental degradation or biodiversity erosion. And so biodiversity is a strong component of my project. And as part of spatial planning for marine renewable energy, I think projects must not be located in key biodiversity areas or marine protected areas or areas where there may be strong conflicts of interest, like important fishing areas. So it is important both for the health of our oceans, but the sustainability of local livelihoods, that there is that recognition that oceans are ecosystems and they should be treated as stakeholders in a way that we really must consider when we interact with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Danya and Reginald. I can see 5 more questions being sent to my screen, but I think that in the interest of time, we have to close this panel session, panel discussion. And again, I would like to thank our amazing panelists for sharing their insights and their experience and their learning and congratulate them on their efforts to contribute to ocean actions towards the implementation of the SDGs, and most notably SDG 14, and addressing the critical issues, not only in your local communities, but also those issues that are prevalent in the region. So I would like to close this panel discussion now. Thank you very much to our audience for their cooperation, and to our online audience who also sent some questions. That will be all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for sharing your passion and your insights. And once again, would you please give a big applause to this wonderful panelists? Thank you. As we conclude today's event, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to all our distinguished guests, speakers, and panelists for your valuable contributions. We also want to thank everyone joining us, both here in person and online, for your engagement and participation. We sincerely hope that this event served to inspire action and contribute to an important and dynamic dialogue surrounding our oceans. UNITAR Hiroshima office will continue to empower diverse leaders like our presenters and panelists today through capacity building and then training programs. If you would like to follow our activities, please follow our social media accounts as shown on the screen. The recordings of this event can be also available on the YouTube Hiroshima channel, the same channel that we used for today's live stream. Thank you once again for being part of this important conversation. We look forward to welcoming you to our future events again. Thank you very much. Okay, this concludes